All right, well, I'm going to get going and folks can continue to join along the way, but just in the interest of everyone's time, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Um, just to start with a couple of housekeeping items, it would be great if everyone could just put their microphones on mute. That is until the very end if you want to ask a question. If any questions come up along the way, you can put them in the chat and my colleague Missy will monitor that and circle back to those at the end. So yeah, this is a virtual job shadow that's being put on by Vermont Works for Women, and we're featuring today Beta Technologies. So we're so excited for you all to join us. And for those of you who don't know, this event is being put on as a part of Vermont Works for Women's Women Can Do Festival conference, excuse me, which is this year a week-long virtual event, primarily for high schoolers and female and gender nonconforming individuals around Vermont who are interested in STEM, trades, careers, and we're hosting a couple of activities, events, and kind of do-it-yourself things that you can do at home all throughout the week. So today we will be hosting Beta Technologies, like I mentioned, and we're so excited to hear about all the really awesome things that they're doing. And so Beta is a aviation products and parts manufacturing company, and they also do a lot of development and testing. They're located in South Burlington, where they're leading the way on electric aviation technology. And so I will let all of our Beta members who are here tell you all a little bit more about that. But here's how this event is going to happen. So after I give a short introduction, we're going to move into a video that was put together by Beta. And you're going to be hearing from 5 different women who work for the company, and they all do different things. And hopefully you'll get to get a little bit more perspective on a couple of the different non-traditional careers within the aviation industry. And so you'll get to hear from those women about their jobs, what they do, how they got started, and you'll actually get to see them at work. So even though we can't host this event in person and see these projects and hear from these women in person, hopefully you'll be able to still learn a lot from this event. And then following the video, we will have a question and answer period with our panelists. So at the end, we'll open it up to our audience members to ask our panelists questions. So if anything comes up along the way, make sure you remember it and bring it up at the very end. And so to give you a little introduction, our panelists are Jill Gagne, who is a project manager at Beta. We'll also have Caroline Kirkland, who is a mechanical engineer. We'll have Melanie Craig, who is a facilities manager, and Brett Martell, who is a systems engineer. And finally, Lan Vu, who is an electrical engineer working on the battery team at Beta. So to kick things off, I will stop sharing my screen and I will let Abby share hers to play you all a video.
Hi, I'm Jill Gagne. I'm a team member at Beta Technologies. Beta Technologies is a company focused on building electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. I'm super excited to be part of this team. On the team, I focus in a few different areas, particularly around the engineering side. So I help with communication, process improvement, some program management, as well as focusing on the safety of the airplane through the certification process with the FAA. Certification is a process that every aircraft must go through to ensure its safety. I have a software background. I went to school at Champlain College and have a degree in software engineering. And I spent many years in the software engineering field. I'm doing everything from testing software to writing software to project management and eventually into leadership. So the most important skills and characteristics of my job here at Beta are around organization, communication, and learning. It's also very important to keep a focus on constant learning. And particularly for me, coming from healthcare IT, moving into the aerospace industry has been a big learning curve. There's a lot of new terminology, there's a lot of new processes, and so keeping an open mind and being willing to learn new things has been key to my role here at Beta. My favorite part of my job here at Beta is running the morning stand-up meeting. So at that meeting, the entire company comes together, and I try to keep it as streamlined as possible so we're not wasting time, but communicating everything that's important that everyone needs to know about to the team so that we're all driven towards a common goal and staying focused. What you'll see next is a video I put together with a colleague when we were rolling out a new design review process here at Beta Technologies. So the audience was the full engineering team, and this was a way to clearly communicate what that process should be to help us organize our work. I'll be talking about requirements in part of the video, and then I'll also be talking about flight airworthiness and why it's important that we follow this process to ensure the safety of our plane. All right, so let's talk a little bit about requirements. So requirements are really the what of what you're trying to do. So what problem are you trying to solve? What are the needs of the customer? Are there safety aspects you need to take into consideration? So before you can build something, you need to know what it is you're trying to build or what problem you're trying to solve. So when you are working with requirements, you really want to define them from the what perspective and not the how. So in this example at the bottom, you can see the pilot shall be able to exit the plane in 10 seconds or less. This is the what. So the pilot needs to exit the plane, that's the problem. There's some boundaries, they need to exit in 10 seconds or less. Another example here is the pilot shall pull a lever to release the canopy to exit the plane. This is really the how. This is getting into the design. Before you go there, you want to focus on the what. And if all goes well with your fly and is deemed flight worthy and ready to be put on the plane, whether that be a LEA or a scale model, then it's time to actually do it, right? So make the changes to the aircraft, but make sure you bring it up in the discussion of the pre-flight so everyone understands what the changes were, and you can talk through that and how the actual flight tests are going to test what you put on, and then document the changes in the LEA change log and the scale model change log. There is a new change log that has a link for the URL to the documentation, and so that is a required field, so you'll want to make sure you have your DRT documentation updated so you can add it to the change log. This is going to be our check. Are we following our own process that we define? Are we being safe before we put things on the airplane?
Hi, my name is Caroline Kirkland. I'm a mechanical engineer here at Beta Technologies. And what I've been doing for the past couple months is working on the cooling system for the battery packs. So I've been focused on the mechanical design of tooling, which will take the raw material of what will make up the cooling system and forming it so it will fit into our battery packs. I think that the most important skill to have as a mechanical engineer is to be able to learn from other people's designs or remember designs or decisions that you've made previously that worked. So one of the mechanical engineers here that's been around for a while, he was helping me with a design, and we wanted something to slot in and fit over a hole and not fall through. And one of the things that he told me is the reason that manhole covers, the sewer things in the road, The reason that they're circular is so that you can't ever pick up the cover and drop it down the hole. So like it's a circle, right? So if you pick it up, no matter how you turn it, it won't ever be able to fall through. Whereas like if it was a rectangle, you could pick it up and turn it this way and it would fall through. So just picking up little stuff like that and being able to apply them to different situations when you're trying to problem solve, I think is really important as an engineer. I think the most rewarding part of my job is doing the design work on the computer, and it all just happens instantly, which is cool, but then it's even better once it's made and it's like physically in front of you and it's like, oh my gosh, I made that. So for my demonstration, we're going to take this material and put it into this machine here using the hydraulic press. We're going to stamp it into the shape that we want. Okay, so we're gonna put our material in our press right here, and we've got some alignment pins, so we need to make sure that it's in between those two pins like that, and there's a stop on the other side. So we've made sure that that's all the way in. So now we'll start to move the hydraulic press down. So we'll give it a couple pumps, and then you'll see between those two plates, you'll see the flat part start to become curvy like those two faces. So now it's trying to bend the material, so you can see the material start to become wavy.
I'm going to.
So I'm going to turn this knob and it'll release all the pressure from the hydraulic press. And that'll move up and we can take out our finished part. So there it goes, that'll move up. And now we can take out our part that used to be flat and now it's wavy.
Hi, my name is Melanie Craig and I am the Facilities Manager here at Beta Technologies. Facilities Manager is somebody who is responsible for the processes within the infrastructure of the organization, and their job is to make sure that everything inside and outside is safe, efficient, and productive. My primary responsibilities at Beta are to maintain outside relationships with contractors, service professionals, along with everybody inside of our organization. My goal is to make sure that all team members have exactly what they need in order to perform their jobs efficiently. I work directly with shipping and receiving to make sure that tools and products are coming in as needed. I work with the cleaning contractors to make sure that the building is cleaned regularly. The most important skills to become a facilities manager are things like communication skills, being able to be flexible and adaptive. You also have to be able to respond to high pressure situations very quickly. I am going to show you a video of our Plattsburgh hangar for Beta Technologies. The hangar is the space that our team works and functions in daily. It's really important that I work with them to keep this entire space clean and organized at all times. Everything from the cleaning products that come in to the heavier tools to parts for the aircraft, and just managing a lot of things behind the scenes. In the video you don't see a picture of the break area or the office areas, but those areas are really important for the team members. I work with the team over there just to make sure that they have everything set up that they need, and because Beta is growing so rapidly, things are always changing and adjustments always need to be made in this kind of space.
Hi, I'm Brett Martell. I'm from Beta Technologies. I'm a systems engineer. My primary responsibilities at Beta are to work on system safety, that's the safety of the aircraft, thinking about all the ways that something could break or fail and making sure we have a plan to make sure that doesn't happen, or a plan in case that does happen to make sure we can safely land the aircraft. And I also work on certification of the aircraft, so that's making sure that we design an aircraft that complies with all the rules that the FAA sets. The FAA is the Federal Aviation Authorities, and they set the rules in the United States for how aircraft should be operated, designed, built, and certified. Before coming to Beta Technologies, I got a mechanical engineering degree and spent about 15 years working at Boeing on commercial aircraft like the 737 and 777. The most rewarding part of my job is knowing that our aircraft will carry people safely to wherever it is they're going, and that the passengers and crew members will never have to worry about having a really bad day. For my demonstration, I'm going to be showing you our simulator of ALIA, that's the name of our aircraft, and we're using the simulator. We use it for lots of things, for training, but in this case we use it to evaluate safety scenarios. This is the ALIA simulator. You can see we have the controls for the simulator here. It runs off X-Plane, which is a common flight simulator. The simulator has a rough frame of the aircraft. It has 2 seats for pilots, 2 sets of flight controls, and you can see there's a giant curved screen here that projects wherever you want to fly, any airport, any airspace. It can also simulate day or night flying conditions. This simulator has the same avionics as the actual aircraft and the same flight controls, and we use this simulator in part to assess if the pilot has everything they need, if it's in the right position. So if they have the right controls, if this is a comfortable fit, and a pilot, everything from a small female pilot to a really tall male pilot, can they reach the pedals comfortably? And then in the event of a hard landing or a crash, is it a safe cockpit? So if I were to come forward, will my head hit this display? We also use the simulator to evaluate the crew's visibility outside the aircraft. So we look at the size and the position of these windscreens to make sure that they can see, for example, the spot that they're going to land the aircraft. So you can see the landing pad over there with the Beta logo. One of the specific things we'll look at as we try to certify the aircraft is what's on the pilot displays. So we'll have to look at the display and check this with our pilots as well as the FAA pilots to make sure that the display is laid out in a way that is easy to read, that it has all the information a pilot would know to fly the aircraft. So things like the speed of the aircraft, the altitude. And in our case, since we're an all-electric aircraft, we also have indications about the batteries, which is our fuel. The displays also have indications about the electric engines and how much thrust they produce and how much power they're using, so we know how much time is left that the aircraft can remain airborne. And so all of this is evaluated repeatedly by multiple people. It's changed. Each change is evaluated to make sure that this is safe, that it's easy to use, that it meets all the regulations, and that any pilot across the world who learns to fly this aircraft could safely operate the aircraft.
Hi, I'm Lan. I'm a team member here at Beta Technologies. I'm a member of the battery team. So we manufacture the battery packs for the electric aircraft. My primary responsibilities here at Beta Technology are taking batteries from the cell level up to a full level pack that we can use in the aircraft, manufacturing them, the whole process, working on making that process efficient. Also, I'm part of the flight test team, so I go over and I monitor the batteries during the flight tests and participate in helping get the plane ready to fly. You don't have a typical day here at Beta. You could be flying an airplane, flying in a helicopter, building batteries or flight testing or testing cells, which involves blowing them up. So one of the great benefits here at Beta is that you can get your private pilot's license through the company. They provide all of the training for you, from the ground school to the actual flying lessons. and they have hired certified flight instructors. So you can sign up for times during work hours and fly a few times a week and work on getting your pilot's license. So when I started, I had no thoughts of getting my license, but when Beta set everything up, I thought it was silly not to at least start it, and 3.5 years later, I was able to get my private pilot's license. For my demonstration, I'm going to show you part of the battery build process. This part of the cells, so we put the cells into what are called parallel blocks, and then we put a bunch of these blocks together to make a module, and then eventually those modules get put together into a pack. So this is kind of the middle step of that whole process, and then just go through and mechanically fasten them all together. Is what this process is going to be. So after the module is fully assembled, this is what you have, and now you have to electrically connect all of the cells together. So we have this wonderful machine that does that for us with some ultrasonic welds. It's called, it's our wire bonder. So we put the module in carefully. So we have programs that are written to do the bonding for our module. So for the most part, it runs on its own. There's a few hiccups here and there, but it's a pretty painless process. So this is a fully bonded module now, so it's electrically connected from one end to the other. So now it's ready to go into a pack. So I have a 10-year-old daughter. I have tried to raise her into not seeing any career that she would choose to do as being non-traditional. So I tell her, you can do whatever you want. I tell her, you know, she doesn't see me as being an engineer and as a pilot as being something not normal. She just sees it as something that, hey, yeah, I can do that too.
Software engineering was always a field I was interested in, and now working for an aerospace company is just a field I was interested in working in. So I'm hoping that we can break down these barriers and not have it seen as non-traditional female work in the future. And if I can do that by mentoring some of the more junior females in the company, so be it.
I think what it means to me is doing what you want to do and what you feel called to do, no matter what the stereotype is of like what that person looks like. So I think that you should just own who you are.
My biggest advice is to never ever give up, no matter what. If you get out into a career field that is just not working for you, I would say go back to school. Continue your education and look for training programs that can put you in a field that is actually exciting to you, and you can do hands-on work and just feel like you're making a change in the world.
I like to think that engineering is becoming a traditional job for women, and I hope that it continues down that road. But right now it is a little underrepresented for women, or there are fewer women engineers. And to me that's meant that there have been points in my career that I've had to work on speaking up, being heard, and other times I've had the benefit of being the only woman and having some additional advantages and visibility that provides.
Oh, now I'm unmuted. What a great video. Thank you so much, Abby, for putting that together, and especially the end was so inspiring. I feel like it perfectly sums up what this Women Can Do conference is all about. But I certainly have a lot more questions for all of our awesome women panelists. So maybe if our 5 women could just like give a little wave. There they are. Awesome. So what we're going to do is start off with some kind of general questions just to get a better idea of how each of you got started in your fields. What are some of the benefits? What do you enjoy? What are some of the challenges? And touching more upon that unique experience of being a woman in your field. So what I'm going to do is maybe we could start just individually with each person. Have a couple of questions, but a tip for participants, if you want to pin the person who's speaking, you can just go up to the upper right hand corner and say speaker view, so that you can see who's talking, and it's not a tiny little square, because we're lucky to have so many people joining us. So just to start out, each of you touched a little bit on this in your video segments, but I would love to hear more about how each of you got your start at Beta, what led to the position you're in today, and maybe just a little bit more about what a typical day is like. And I know Lan mentioned there isn't a typical day at Beta, but maybe what is your ideal day when you're working. So let's see, who, I guess Jill can go first. She was one of our first participants. So how did you get your start, and what is a typical day like?
Sure. So I was looking for a career change, and I actually worked through my network of people. That was my first approach before I started blanketly sending out resumes. So throughout your career, it's really critical to build that network of people, because that is probably your key to your next job, more so than just your resume. So I did know someone at Beta who knew my skill set and brought me in for an interview. And so when I started, it wasn't a role that was clearly defined. So along the way, I've defined the role a little bit more for myself by helping out where I can in various areas. So that was how I got my start, and that was last summer. And a typical day, as Lan said, there is no typical day, but my day usually starts with preparing for the morning meeting. So I mentioned that in my video. So I spend some time going through Slack, which is our internal communication tool, and reading as many posts as I can in the various areas to see what's going on, to understand what should be brought up and shared with the team. And then I run that meeting. And then after that, it's a variety of things depending on the day. I have some days that I do some things, but I work with the scale model team a bit and try to help them focus and organize their work. And so I'm doing some check-ins with them and putting together project status for them, as well as working with the certification team on communication with the FAA, prepping for that. And so, today I'm working on a coding project where I'm helping mine some data from Slack messages. So little this, little of that on a given day.
Yeah, it seems like in your role, it's a lot of different things, and so maybe each day is a little bit different. But
yes, which is great because it keeps it interesting.
Yeah, definitely. That's great to hear. I'd love to hear from Caroline too about how you got your start, and what a typical day is like for you.
So I'm actually from North Carolina. I went to North Carolina State and studied mechanical engineering, which feels like was about 5 minutes ago. And so when I was coming up on graduation, I was looking for some jobs, and I had done an internship at a big company and felt pretty confident that I was going to get a job offer there, but really wanted to do something exactly like Beta. At the time, I really wanted to get into car racing.
I had some experience with that at my university. So that was really cool. And I was, as my dad calls it, shaking the tree, trying to make some connections in North Carolina. And then I had the very good fortune to meet a guy that lives in North Carolina, but works for Beta, and was very serendipitous. And I met him as part of a club, and just kind of started talking to him. And he was like, yeah, there's this really crazy company that I work for. And I was like, that sounds like exactly what I want. Wasn't super crazy passionate about car racing itself, but I wanted that sort of environment, really fast paced. And that's what I found at Beta. So he was like, how do you feel about Vermont? So I ended up here, and kind of like Jill said, that there wasn't necessarily a job title. A little bit, you show up to Beta and they're like, great, do things. So I floated around a little bit and did a lot of hands-on stuff just here and there, and saw the battery team and the cool work that they were doing. And I felt like I didn't know that much about batteries, but I do obviously think it's the future. So I wanted to learn more about that. And I kept showing up to the battery meetings, and eventually people gave me some tasks to do. And it's been really awesome. I'm still doing a lot of mechanical things, but I think that is also a little bit of a misconception about electrification in general, is that, oh, it's just electrons. And that's not true. You still have to hold them. You still have to, like in a plane, Brett and Lan could talk way more about this, but it has to take a load, like a force. And there's still a lot of really mechanical aspects to batteries and how we use them. So yeah, I'm really happy that I ended up on this team. And if I'm lucky, a typical day will be, I have some computer tasks that I need to do and some hands-on stuff. And so the nice thing about Beta is, as long as you're getting things done on an appropriate timeline, you can make your day whatever you want it to be, which, like Lan said, it never really looks the same. So I normally start off the morning with some computer stuff while I am riding the caffeine kick from my coffee. And then after lunch, I normally get a little sleepy. So that's a really good time to go do some battery testing, and that'll wake you up. And yeah, and then just kind of round out the evening with like whatever bits and bobs I have left. So, but like, I mean, everybody will say it, but Lan is right. It all looks different, and you never know if you're going to show up and your whole day will change instantly, like based on whatever's going on.
Mm-hmm. And did you mention that your job at Beta was your first position after college? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what was it that you studied?
Mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm. Great. Awesome. So let's move on to Melanie. How'd you get your start, and what are some of your day-to-day activities?
So I actually was a facilities manager for another local company here in Burlington, which was awesome. And I started there as a facilities coordinator, which basically at that point, I was looking for a career change. Prior to that, I was an orthodontic assistant, and I had done that for like 14 years. So this was something that was completely different. Mm-hmm. But I know myself, and I just like to be on the move. I like to be busy, and I love to make changes. Ever since I was a little girl, I was constantly rearranging spaces and just creating different things and painting things and driving my family crazy. So I just happened to come across this position. And I was lucky enough to get a lot of hands-on training from the person who actually built the buildings at this other company. So I was there for probably 3 years, and then somebody from Beta was coming in frequently, and really just right when Beta started, he was like trying to get me to go into Beta. And he was like, we need a facilities manager, we're growing. And at that time, I wasn't ready. I was happy where I was. And I'm glad I stayed, because I was able to learn a lot of other skills that I really needed to bring over to Beta. So that was really important. And then by the time I was ready to join Beta, I felt like I was physically ready, I was mentally ready, and I was just more prepared.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. And every day facilities is awesome because it's kind of like project management in a way that
Mhm.
every single day is different and you're always doing different things. The most important thing is just making sure that your people are taken care of. The building and the spaces are taken care of. And that's what I love to do. So it's definitely a great role and position for somebody who just likes to be active and likes to be outgoing and willing to do anything and learn different things.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it's just a lot of everything, and you're behind the scenes making sure everything is in its place and people are have the things that they need to do. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. And your role is important because team members really rely on you to do the little tiny small
Hmm.
things that keep the business functioning
Yeah,
and keep them going.
yeah.
So I never end my day feeling disappointed or like I didn't contribute.
Hmm.
So it's a fulfilling role. I love it.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. So we'll move on to Brett, who comes from, I guess, more of the engineering side at Beta, also. And so, yeah, can you tell us how you got your start and what some of your day-to-day activities are?
Sure. Um, so I was at Boeing for quite a long time, which is a very traditional aerospace company. Um, and my family relocated to Vermont, which is actually where I grew up. And after being back about a year, I decided I didn't want to do remote work with Boeing. I wanted to, work with a team. I miss being with people, and I also wanted to see if I could kind of repoint my career. I love aviation, but I wanted to. Um, I have a great interest in renewable energy, and I was looking around for opportunities, and I couldn't believe my luck when I found a company that did both. Um, you know, uh, Electrification and aviation. That's more than I thought I could hope for. And I was also lucky that they were hiring in roles that kind of matched what I'd done at Boeing. So I applied through kind of a more standard process. Unlike Jill, I didn't use my network. I wish I could have, because I could have found out sooner. Um, and for me, I think um, I'm going to echo that every day is a little bit different, but I think every day has some similar elements, and that's Jill mentioned this. There's a tag up every morning with a larger team, and then usually at some point in the day there's a tag up with a smaller team. I'm also doing a lot of work talking to our customers to understand what they need the aircraft to do, um, and talking to some of our suppliers who are more like our partners, um, and making sure that we're um, talking about the same requirements, that we agree on how the aircraft should be built or designed, what it should do, how we'll test it, when those things will happen. So there's a lot of coordination for me, and um, I, I'd say it's I don't get to do hands-on things every day, um, but probably every week I do, and that still feels good and rewarding. So I think that's about that. That's a typical day.
Yeah. Did you find it was a big transition for you to move from kind of the traditional aviation large industry to the company and the role you're in today?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it really has to do with your personal mindset. There were certainly a lot of people that I used to work with at Boeing that were more entrenched, and this is my role. I only do what's defined in this box. And that never felt like a good fit to me. I liked finding the challenges, doing different things. And so I actually feel like Beta is a better personality fit for me. But it certainly is a different culture, and I think that's actually been really refreshing to find a lot less bureaucracy, a little bit more chaos, but in a way that
can be really fun, and also gives you a lot of freedom to find the right way through it. So I think it's been a good transition on the whole.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And then we'll obviously, last but not least, we'll move into Lan. Similar questions to you. Let's hear a little bit about how you got started and what you do.
So I started with Beta pretty much at the beginning. So I've been here for 3.5 years. And it was actually Kyle Clark, the founder, CEO, who reached out to me. We had worked together previously at Dynapower. So that was the job I had before starting at Beta. And actually, we had gone to high school together. We both went to Essex High School. So that's why it's important to grow your network and keep in touch with people. But he was starting the company, and he reached out to me on LinkedIn and was like, hey, you want to come see what I'm doing? And I kind of followed him a little bit after he'd left. So I had an idea, and then I came to see what Beta was doing, and he was basically selling me to the company to try and get me to work here. And I was just like, where do I sign? Because it was just so crazy sounding, and just like, I was definitely at a point in my career at Dynapower where I was looking to move on. So it was a perfect opportunity. But I also started out at a big defense contractor. I started out with General Dynamics right out of college, and worked with them for 7.5 years, and then moved down to Dynapower, which was a slightly smaller company, and then moved down to an even smaller company with Beta. And I found it was definitely, the culture at the larger companies was a little harder to deal with. You definitely had, especially at General Dynamics, I called it the old boys club. You never could really break into. So it definitely made the culture there, I wouldn't really say toxic, but just not as enjoyable to be working in. And it got better with Dynapower because they were a smaller company, but it was starting to get that way when I left. So working at Beta was really refreshing because there was only like 5 of us here, and everyone was just working hard to like do their part. So we never got that feeling, and the culture has stayed the same in the 3-4 years that we've been, which is amazing. With we're at over 200 people, so keeping that culture like that is has been great. But also, okay, so for a typical day here, well, like for example, today I was supposed to be flight testing, so my typical day today would have been helping get Aaliyah ready for flight tests, and then actually flying in the chase helicopter, monitoring the batteries while she was flying around, and then once it was all done, prepping everything for the next day. So that's kind of that would be a typical flight test day. But usually on a typical day, I just ask myself, what do I need to do to stay on the critical path? Just kind of what Kyle says every day at stand up, like make sure you're on the critical path of getting Aaliyah flying and certified. And so you just kind of ask yourself if what you're doing is helping towards that goal.
So you come from the perspective of working on the battery team. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about how that works? Because it is an electric aircraft, batteries are obviously a huge part of how it works. And so I know that there's remote charging stations that you're working on that are like cool pads that the aircraft lands on. And then obviously is there batteries in the aircraft itself? So can you give us a little bit more information about how that works?
Yeah, so our challenge is that for what we're trying to achieve, we basically had to create our own battery packs, because the energy density that we're looking for, there was nothing out there that we could use. So we take the individual cells, which are, I don't know, the size of like a D battery or something. And then we package those together to make the energy that we need to power, the motors. So yeah, there are spots underneath the airplane. So if you look underneath the airplane, that's where all the batteries live. And there's 5 bays, so you can configure it however you need for whatever mission that you're trying to accomplish. And then, yeah, we're working on recharging pads. So they're basically just shipping containers that you can get in any kind of configuration. And then there's a helipad on top. So you're supposed to be able to land Aaliyah on top of the recharging pad and then hook her up and then be able to recharge her in under an hour. And then there's space underneath for like the crew to do some work or hang out while they're waiting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. So I want to open this up to anyone to answer, but it seems like Beta is a really unique company, and it seems like you all really enjoy your jobs working there. Can anyone elaborate a little bit on what is the company culture like at Beta, and what's kind of unique about working there, and what do you enjoy the most?
This is Jill. I can get us started, and then I hope others chime in. So I'd say the most unique thing for me about Beta is that there is no structure. It's a completely flat organization. There's no managers, there's no middle managers, executives. Everyone is expected to do their job, and like Lan said, know what you need to do to stay on the critical path and do that and get it done. And you're trusted to be, you're just trusted to do the right thing. I find that very unique. Also, having come from a large 10,000 person corporation, it was refreshing and eye-opening. So I think that is the biggest difference with Beta that I've seen compared to other companies, or at least companies of scale. That leads to a culture of collaboration. So I'll let others speak up also.
Yeah, I guess I'd echo, Jill, what you said. I think there's a lot of trust for the employees that is new. I think bigger corporations tend to have policies, so they don't have to trust people. But I think at Beta, there's a lot of trust that people are going to, do their work, do it to the best of their ability, to find a way. I think there's also a lot of support that comes with that. And I think it feels like a high energy culture, that everyone's excited, everyone comes to work ready to give it their all. But I think there's also a lot of acceptance that we have lives outside of Beta, and that if you need to take a day and rest or spend time with your family, that's supported and welcome, and as it should be.
I also just want to say something that's so unique about Beta is that you have an unlimited amount of opportunities to learn something new and do something different. You are not, like Brett was mentioning that she felt very boxed in, at Boeing, and you are not boxed in at all. There are so many, because it's, a growing company. There's just different ways that you can contribute to a new process that needs to be put in place. You can jump in and help different team members accomplish their daily goals even. For me, I think that that's probably the most awesome part.
And also to expand on all that, so we like to do a lot of what's called micro experimentation, which is really encouraged here. So like a lot of people say, we're not building paper airplanes, so you don't want to spend all your time just sitting there and designing and analyzing on paper or on your computer. You want to actually build things and try things out and see if they work. So that's kind of what makes Beta unique. We don't have a lot of red tape that you have to cut through. You are given the opportunity to just, if you have an idea, just go ahead and implement it and see how it works. And you don't have to ask permission from anyone if you should go ahead and do it.
Lan took the words right out of my mouth, that and it's funny because it's my first job, so it would almost be like I should be really good at this by now because I've never known anything else. But it's been a little bit of a difficult adjustment coming from school, where either you're right or you're wrong. There's a red check or a red X, and that's like not at all what it's like at Beta. But one thing I did want to say is, like Lan said, the critical path, and just making sure we're all in the critical path and moving kind of as fast as we're able. And one thing I don't, know the intricacies of it and how much of it is on purpose and how much of it is secondhand. But one thing that I think is really cool about being at Beta, where we're just all running hard at the same goal, hopefully, is that I think that being it's really cool to see other females in like the non-traditional jobs here at Beta, but I hope this doesn't come across bad. I don't think that it's that nobody really notices. It's like, what's your name? What do you like? Let's go. Like, let's go do. And it's kind of like totally a secondary thing that it's like, okay, well, like, what are your pronouns? Let's move on. Like, let's get stuff done. What can I help you with? Can you help me with this? And so the focus is very much on the work and like supporting one another and being on that critical path. And I feel like a lot of the other stuff is very secondary, which I think is a good thing. I hope that doesn't come across as a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it really seems like the company culture is set up so that, there's no hierarchy. Everybody is kind of treated the same. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or you identify any other way. It's you're there to make some developments, innovate, experiment, and you have some freedom to make some really awesome things happen. And so yeah, so with only 8 minutes left, I do want to open it up to the audience just to see if there's any other questions out there. You could direct it to the panelists in general or to anyone individually.
I have a question.
Go
I'm
ahead.
curious about what policies Beta has in place for, you talk about having a kind of a flexible schedule. Do you have specific policies around childcare, flexible work schedules, anything like that?
I can answer that. I don't know that there's a specific policy. I think there's like an unlimited vacation and sick time that you can use that when you need it. But I'm a part-time employee, so I work the equivalent of about 4 days a week so that I can be home and do stuff with my kids in the afternoons. And I brought that up during my interview. I expected that to be the end of the conversation. And the response I got was no problem. And I was a little unsure of if that would actually be how it went when I started working. But I have to say that, especially right now in the midst of the pandemic, having to, if your kid has to stay home because they've got a cold, and there's not been a single situation that's been difficult to manage. The organization has been entirely supportive, understanding, and I also see, I work closely with a gentleman who is probably, he takes time to, take his kids to appointments. I think he took his daughter up in a flight lesson when she was out on school break. So I think it's a very supportive culture for families. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I just want to expand on Brett's. I had the same situation when I started, where I was like, I have young kids. I need to be. I had kind of different working hours. I was like, I'll come in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then but I need to leave by like 2:30. And Kyle was like, yeah, no problem. And it hasn't changed in the 3.5 years that I've been here. Pretty much as long as you get your work done, that's all you have to do. As long as you're, making sure you're communicating with your team members, and you're kind of just doing what's expected of you. No one's looking over your shoulder and watching how many hours you work, or making sure it's just you managing yourself. So it's been great.
Thank you. That also leads me to a question about how do you do performance reviews or evaluations of your work?
So we don't have a formal policy for that. There is no standard check-in. So I know for me personally, when I hit my 3-month mark, I scheduled time with the people I interviewed with and said, how am I doing? Am I meeting your needs? Am I meeting expectations? Are there things you want me to start doing or stop doing? And I repeated that when I hit 6 months. So it's really geared, the company is really geared to self-starters and people who are driven and motivated. And so it's on the individual really to pull that information. That's not necessarily pushed on you or forced on you annually for an annual review, which has been for me refreshing, coming from an annual review cycle where everyone dreaded having to do the self reviews, and then the managers had to do the reviews, and then the next level had to do the reviews. So it's very different, very open. And I would say if you don't, I mean, some people like that formal pull of that, but I also think that you can get that every day on what you're doing as well. You can get the daily feedback on how you're doing. So I wouldn't say that, in the absence of asking for that, you don't get any feedback. You get the day-to-day in the moment feedback more often than you would get a formal set of feedback.
Thank you.
On that note, I actually just went through a little bit of a round of reviews that I called myself. And I think that one thing that's kind of cool at Beta is, not that we say this that often, but it's kind of like ask and you shall receive. Like everybody wants to support you. Sometimes maybe they're running so fast at things that they wouldn't think of it themselves. But as soon as you're like, hey, me, please, I need some help, everyone is more than willing to do what they can. And so that's how I felt going through some reviews recently.
And we're also such an informal company that you can always talk to. Just Kyle's walking around, you can just catch him and just sit down with him for 5 minutes and be like, hey, what do you think, how do you think I'm doing, and all that stuff. Or just catch him and take him on an airplane ride and he'll tell you that too.
Is there ever any meetings on the airplane?
Oh, always.
Zooming in from the cockpit.
Yeah.
Well, with only 2 minutes left. Yes, Allison, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm the Director of Programs at Vermont Works for Women. And I just wanted to thank you all for your time. It's been really interesting. And I know that you've supported our youth programming multiple times, many times in the past. So we appreciate that. I was wondering if there are any ways for young people to get involved. I know probably right now during COVID, it's challenging, and this is a great opportunity to do something virtual like this. But in a typical time, if they're interested, young people who are interested in the industry or the field or what you all are doing, are there opportunities to visit, take a tour, do an internship, interview somebody, or anything like that?
All of the above.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Say the same thing.
Yeah. So if you wanted a tour, send a note out to any of the contacts. Any one of us can arrange for a tour. We are working with all of the high school STEM organizations, leaders, and working on high school internship programs. So we had our first round this spring, and we'll be continuing that in the summer and in the fall. And how it works is evolving, but we strongly support that. So if you have a high school student who is interested, get with the STEM advisors, and they can we're going to be putting in place a process to apply. So there's that. And then I don't remember what else you had said, Allison, but hopefully that covers most of it. But any of the above, yes.
Absolutely. This year we had 0 female applicants for our high school internship program, which was a little bit heartbreaking for all of us. So more girls, please.
But to bring it full circle, just use we're part of your network now. So reach out to us, and you can make things happen. So.
Yeah, thank you. I think your participation and support for our programs is a great step in just making this exposure, and accessibility for young women to be able to just learn that there are lots of different things, and there are role models doing them. So that's great.
right? There's no limitations to what any of us can do. And I think that's a great way to end this Women Can Do event. A big thank you to all of our panelists. Your perspective was really great to hear. And also to Abby, who put together that video. It was so well done. If you want to see any of the clips featuring each individual woman, they can be found on our Flipgrid site, which we'll be using all week to showcase a lot of other really awesome women as well who are in non-traditional careers. And I encourage you all to check that out. And yeah, just
Allison, if you give me a sec, I can put that link in the chat.
that would be perfect. Yeah. So those can be viewed all week. And they're really awesome. I haven't even been able to see them all, but yeah, I guess Allison's gonna put that in the chat.
Actually, I'm gonna ask Ezzy, if you have it at your fingertips, would you throw it in the chat for us, please?
Looks like I might actually.
Okay, thanks. It's not where I thought it was.
There we go. All right. Yep. So thank you all. Thank you, Beta, so much. And if you want to follow some of the other events that we're putting on this week, on Thursday night, we're having a conversation with Vermont State Senator Keisha Ram. And I'm really looking forward to that because she's really awesome. And yep. So that is it. Thank you all once again for joining.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
us.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all for coming.